This is being created. So for this, we'll create a storage account, create storage account. So we just call this the STG. In the region can be in US. Okay, enable hierarchical namespace, review and create. Okay, and go to your resource. Okay, so I think we have already created a storage account. So add this CO. Yeah. Okay, so this is our data factory. And in the last class, we tried to download stuff, right, from a GitHub account, right? I know this. Okay. So we tried to download what's it called? This data, which is these athletes, coaches, entries, medals, and teams. So and in the last class, we use a base URL, right? So for the raw data. So for this raw data, so for the raw data, we try to like download each and every one of them like individually. We downloaded the athletes, but the training is if you want to download the coaches, you need to like come here again and be what's it called, trying to also like download this, repeat this step and repeat this step. So this is where you can use parameters and another activity, which is a ForEach activity. So let's go to our data factory instance. But I've created this. Okay, so let's go to Launch Studio. Okay, so here and your auto star, you create a pipeline. So let's have a new pipeline. And what's the name? Let's just call this. Let's call this wish. Or let's call this a parameter. So parameter. So we have what is called a pipeline parameter. So pipeline parameters are stuff that you want all the activities in your pipeline to take, right? So you can have, so these are pipelines. So you have your pipeline, and inside your pipeline, you have different activities. And the thing about pipelines is you can have different activities in your pipeline. So by default, when you have a parameter, you can, it's just like what's it called? Environment variables in Python, right? So all that stuff. So now let's have a copy activity, right? So let's say this copy activity, copy this information into, let's assume this copy activity copies information from this
We can't hear you again. I think you're muted.
Wow. I never knew I was muted though. Oh, thank you. Okay, so what did you, where was the last point I stopped before you stopped hearing me? Oh, okay, so this is resource group and then your database details. And let's give it a database name. Let's call it SQL Server DB. And then our server, we need to create a new server. And for this, we can just call it SQL Server. SQL TC server. Requests. Okay. So okay, so here, you click on OK, create a database. No, this is development. Local redundant, apply free offer. So make it free. And then this will be also to be in local redundant storage. Networking, can have public access, allow this, yes. Security, no. Okay, so here, review and create. Okay, so then here you create your database. Okay, so what we want to do is for each of these files, we want to move them. So in the last class, right, we learned about how to download this or how to move them. So here you come to raw, and in your pipeline, you have your here just like copy your files, and here you go to your data factory. So this is the rating. Then you define your source. We need to create our source data sets. I think we already talked about this in the last class. So then you have your CSV, click on continue. So here you can just call this, let's say Olympics data sets. And then your link service, which is your connection, right? So now call this a link service. This is an account key, storage name this, and click on create. So once you create, you specify the file path. So we don't have any stuff here, so we can just have a directory here. Let's call it maybe raw. And oh, this is not the source. Yeah, we want to get it from the web. So it to be back. So what we need to do is to use the web was HTTP. So you have your HTTP was a called data set. So by default, data set goes into that service and pull the information for you. So click on continue. What is the format of the file? CSV, right? So continue. And here we're going to just have this as HTTPS, or let's say Olympics HTTPS service. And for the link service, we create a new link service. So we can call it. And here we need to have our base URL. And given the fact that the base URL doesn't change because where's this? So here, if you come here to Olympic stuff, so if you go to your Olympic stuff, you probably like copy this URL file and then do something here. Paste limit exceeded. Okay, let me just do something. Let me go to my notepad. Okay, so here in the notepad, you just not this, it's not. Okay, let's copy the link address, and here so by default we have the row, right? There should be a very distinct change. It's good and preview. Okay, so by default, in Azure, right? The only thing that this one is constant was called in this URL. This one is constant. So if you have a constant URL, that will be your base, and then you can have what is called the ones that changes, right? So this one is like the other URL paths, but this one is constant because if you look at it, it's constant. If you even copy these coaches, go to coaches, and then you try to copy link address. You also see so now let's copy this one. So by default, you realize that this is constant. So that means this will be like you copy this with your base. So by default, what happens is this will be your base. And when you have your base here, authentication. So the base URL is this. Answer. Okay, link service. Let's create a new one. HTTP server ls. And here base URL. This. So by default, this is the base URL. So you also have the / here. Server certification validation. Authentication is anonymous because we don't have, if you have like a secret key, if it's also be in a public or private repository, then you probably need to get the secrets or authentication headers. So here you can also have the parameters in your link service. So you can click on new. So these parameters, you can have your parameters as new. So let's just click on create here. So now the relative URL is where you need to specify this last part, right? So the relative URL is this part, which is this athlete CSV, right? This athlete CSV. And by default, if you want to get raw files, you need to Okay, I think you need to add this. Okay, this one row is got to true. Okay, so we need to add this in front of it. So let's go to this. Okay, so let's edit this. So the base URL is this, right? It's bin.main. So it is up to this main/data, and then you're connecting anonymously. So then the parameters, then click on save. And then for the relative URL, it is this coaches.csv. Then let's click on OK. Let's see if you can preview the data. Okay, we can preview the data. So one thing you will notice is the fact is we had to like hard code this. You understand? So we have to hard code it. But instead of hard coding this, let's have a parameter. We can instead of hard coding this, we can have a parameter. So we can have new. So for these parameters, we can have the name as maybe, let's call this let's call this relative URL. So and then the value it's a string. The value will be, let's call this maybe coaches.csv. So we put it inside indentation. I don't think okay. So here we can also do, so there's something called dynamic content. So Azure helps you with something called a dynamic content. So what it does is you can pass in parameters. You can pass in what's it called, a pipeline parameter into this. So by default, when Azure wants to run it, there's a substitution that takes place behind the scene. So what it just does is what dataset.relative URL. So that's the dataset.relative URL, and then you click on OK. So by default, this would be like when you run this, Azure will pick this dataset or relative URL. So you're giving it the parameters of this dataset, and then it's taking it. You can also like have you can also have parameters from the pipeline. You can have parameters from the dataset. So you can even have parameters from the pipeline. Let's call this maybe relative URL. Then the string the value is this. So now let's go into this. We can also like have, let's open this. So if you go to the relative URL, and you pick it from the function, collection function, data function. Pipeline.plus. Okay, so now let's use this data set, the relative URL, click on OK. And so by default, we already have the relative URL right here. So let's test connection successful. So now let's go to our pipeline. So by default, so if you look at this here, you need to like give a parameter which you can. So here, if you look at this in your data set, we can have our parameters here. Let's even delete this. So we can have a parameter here, which is, let's call this maybe a relative URL. So by default, when you have your parameter here, you can now like reference it here. So you just reference it here as relative URL. So you click on OK. Delete this. Click on this. Add dynamic content. So you just reference it. So you click on OK. So by default, if you pass a parameter in the data set, then it will take that value. Well, now when you now go into your pipeline and you want to run it, this is where you can now specify the value. So by default, you can leave it empty. So when you want to run it, you pass it. So now let's do something. Let's even delete this so that you see what is occurring. So now get, then our sync. We are going to like have another sync. Then this is what Azure SQL database. Click on continue. Let's call this data set. Yes. So now link service, we need to create a new link service. And then this will be what ls. From Azure subscription, let's create this server name. Let's create this database. So let's say SQL Server DB authentication type. We have our SQL authentication. What was the username? I think I forgot the username. So go to resource. So here, the settings, connection string. Just value. Okay. Let me try to connect with editor preview. Okay, server admin. So that's a login. Okay, so here you give your username, and then for the password, I think I dropped it in the chat. So for the username, this is here. Okay, let's test connection. Connection successful. So yeah, after creating this table name, we enter manually. Let's go this DBO. Let's see coaches. Oh, this just remove this and click on OK. So okay, and here you can just like auto create tables, auto create your tables, and then insert, then open this. So enter manually. Let's call this DBO. Let's call this coaches. So here, you just like go back to the parameters, and then you need to publish this. Okay, if you look at this, when you try to publish, it tells you that it needs a value because you already like gave it a parameter. So you said it needs to like retrieve a parameter. You already gave it a parameter, which is a name. So here's where we're going to give it here. If you realize that if you want to publish, it needs this value. So and what is the value here? It is what coaches.csv, with the true at the back of it, right? So that will be coaches.csv. And then you need to have this raw is equal to true at the front. So And then it has been, you see that it has been fixed because it needs a value. So let's close it. And here, yeah, so our sync, we need to specify the sync. So open, we already have this dot coaches. So we can publish this. So publish. And we said it should also create a table by default. So it's publishing. I don't know why. Okay, let's try to debug and see. So here we have our relative URL, and so this is pipeline. This thing we give it coaches to CSV. Click on OK. So let's see the debug. Copy data is coming. Okay, so by default it has been succeeded, right? So you can go to your what's password. Password is this. Okay. So let's look at our tables. dbu.coaches. So we have it here, and then we can select the top 10. So here it shows that the query was successful. So but if you want to also like pick these entries, gender, the matters to CSV, the teams, you realize that you need to like be creating a different link service for each of them. But given the fact that the base URL doesn't change, so what you just need to change is just these names. So now let's try to copy this athlete so and the entry. So what we can now do for the athletes is to maybe come here and change. Let's just copy the name here. Copy this. Go here. So here, you can also go to the source and then change the relative URL. What are you going to put here? You put what's athlete.raw.csv. So this will pick the athlete, then the sync. So you are also going to like also maybe make it edit to here. So this will be what's athletes. So now, and then you go back to your pipeline and yeah, you debug. So debug this and see coaches.csv. Are you taking coaches? So let's look at the parameters here. Okay, it's because I'm not publishing. Publish. Okay, we'll publish. At least one resource deployment field. Okay, let's go back to the parameters. We should be picking this parameter. Let's see the athletes. Okay, so this is the athlete one from this. And let's try to debug. Let's picking from coaches. Oh, okay, so we are picking this. So let's make this empty. So Okay, so in our pipeline parameters, we need to like have this relative URL here. So this will be athletes, and then raw is true. Right? So here, it will be this. Raw is equal to true. Okay, so now go to the copy activity, your source. So here, by default, we're passing the pipeline parameter. So which is this, which is okay. So and this pipeline parameter is from this parameter that was specified here. Okay, now then, so here, and then the sync, right? We already specified the sync to be athletes, right? So let's go back here, go to source to ensure that we are doing the right thing. Let's go to parameters here, athletes. Okay, so we can run this. So let's try to debug this. So, okay. So this is running. Okay, so it's succeeded, and then you can go to your database, refresh this, and you see that you have the athletes, and then you can just select the top 10 rows. And here you see the athletes are here. But the funny one thing again in your mind is you have to like always come here and be changing it, like change the parameter name, right? So, but that is not what you want to do. So one thing you can do is to insert, have these parameters as what, as have this parameter as what is called like, let's have this parameter as an array. So if it has an array, so you need to like put it inside an array. So for the athletes, then you also need to have for the coaches. So, and then you also have for the medals. So let's try for these 3 medals. So instead of having it as what's called, I think inside this array, you need to make it like, so instead of a string, you make it like an array, and then so let's have this as an array, right? So the array is this. Then you have your coaches.csv. Then you have your entries.csv, medals.csv, and then you have your teams.csv. So now you just copy this as an array and paste in your. Okay, so one thing you want to look at is how you can copy these files, right? So now you have it as an array, and what you want to do is for each of these values in this array, you want to pass it into this as your relative URL. So what can you do? And then there's an activity here which is ForEach. So this ForEach activity, pick it here. So inside this ForEach activity, you can have a copy activity inside it. So let's have an activity which is a copy data activity. And inside this copy data activity, we need to have okay, so our data set parameter is, so what the for each activity does is, for each of the activity inside this, each of the parameters is just like a for loop, right? So for each of the activity, you want something to be done. And for each of the values in the array, you want something to be done. So here, what will be this value, a dynamic content? So yeah, if you see something here, you see you have it for each current item. So by default, you have some values that this for each returns. So, and then what are you going to do? You just come here and do current item dot, yeah, current item, right? I think. So it picks the current item, and then you can click on OK. And so here in the sync, you also need to have what this SQL database. So here you can pass a dynamic item. So why am I not having this function here? Okay, so one thing is you need to create a parameter for this so that you can dynamically insert something into it. So let's call this table name. And it's a string, so leave it default value, just leave it as a normal value. And then when you come here, come to your edit. So here you can now say now for the table name. So what you want to have here is a table name, which is dataset parameter. And inside this now, when you now have your, so now you have your, this gives you what a way of like having your parameter, which is your dataset properties. And here you have your dynamic content, and here you just take your for each item. So what does for each do? So what it does is you have an array here. These arrays are like this, right? So it's just like it's stuff. So if you have Python, if you have programmed in Python before, you know what for each is. So for it's just like saying for each item in this list. So and then when you run the pipeline, so what happens is each item is this. So it picks this value, and then it would do a substitution inside this value. So that is the item. So that is the iteration that is being done. Okay, so here we say inserts, and then open here. So let's go back to our parameters, inserts, or auto create our table. So now, then try to debug this. So by default, you have your parameters for each, and then it takes this value. So I'll go back into for each parameters. Settings. So you need to have the items, which item are you passing? So the item we are passing is what? Parameters is this relative URL. So you need to pass your parameter into it. So the arrays, and then if you look at it, the parameters here is this array. Okay, and that is all right. So let's make this inactive. So we can deactivate this. So when you deactivate the pipeline, you don't want it to run. So you can activate it or deactivate it. So and then you are here, and then you come to your pipeline, which is this, right? So parameters pipeline. And then you try to debug it. So it should be a valid array. Okay, so for it to be a valid array, you need to like put it inside what? As a string, which the program of Python, you know what a string is. So here, you have this. You have this. You have this. You have this. And then here, this. This. You have this. And then you have this. Okay, so I will fix this. So now let's try to debug this. Pipeline values must be valid array. And cut this. Okay, let's do something here. Okay, so yeah, fix it. So you need this double quotations for the string for the array. And here you can debug. So this is the relative URL. Then you click on OK. So this is running. So if you look at this, this will run for how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Why? Because it's just like a for loop, right? So you have 5 items, and then this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's run 5 times. So this is in progress, the ForEach. So the ForEach activity is in progress. So because we have numerous activities inside this pipeline field. But okay, I think there's something that needs to be done. So the parameters, I think we need to have this raw is equal to true in front of each thing. So here we have this. Here you have this. Here you have this. Here you have this. So here, then let's put this here and try to debug. Let's see. Okay, we're waiting for it. One field is succeeded. Why did this fail? It succeeded. It succeeded. Uh, okay, I see. So I didn't add this raw is equal to true to in the front of it. So I see the reason. And that's the reason why it failed. So yeah, from here, click on OK. Field can cancel recursive. So yeah, let's go back to our parameters here. And here you can do it, add the values here. Okay, so now we can, I think, run this. So let's debug this. So click on OK. And then let's wait for it to run. This succeeded 1, 2, 3. This was cancelled. Why did this fail? Okay, well, let's just go back to this SQL server and then look at the tables that has been created. So in this table, we see now that we have dbo.atlet.csv, and then we have different tables here. This, and if you look at this, you can even like maybe select 1000 rows. So if you look at this now, we did not have to like go into what's it called? We don't have to go into Azure Data Factory to do this individually. So we just did it together, and then the for each activity just pick it up. So now one thing you can do, instead of concatenating, instead of adding this row at the front of each of these, there's something you can do which is called concatenation. So you can even concatenate this. So because if you look at this, the table that we're getting at the end of the day is having this .csv row. So if you look at this, you're seeing this .csv with a question mark row is equal to true. But what we just want to have is table.athletes. So that is the schema and the table. Then what you're going to do instead of having it here is, instead of having this here, is what you're going to do is this, copy this. So here, we're just going to have these names here. So let's remove this, Control X, delete this, delete this, delete this, delete this, and then delete this. So now we only have this, right? So let's copy and paste this here. So we have our teams of CSV. So now, when we have this stuff here, so this item is still going to pick it, and then let's go into our copy activity. So our table name is what is this item, but there's something called concat. So what we want to do at the end of the day is to have this athlete with this .csv, and this row is equal to true, right? So you're going to do something here which is concat, and for concat you concat this and this together. Yeah, what you want to concat is what is to concat this. So if you have done Python before, you know what concatenation is. You can always like Google it out to know what concatenation is. So here .csv, and then you have this here. So here you're going to put it inside the string. This, right? So and where is this function coming from? You can get the function from this. So function here, you have string functions to concat, so combines any word. So see, this is where you get your concats from. So you concat these two together, and what it does is to join this unrecognized expression. Something here. Okay, so if you want to concat, you shouldn't use that double quote. So you just use this single one, and then click on OK. So by default, the table name should be in this concat. This should be in the relative URL. So let's copy this. So here should just be the item. So here should just be the item because we just want the name of the item as the table name, right? So click on OK. So this is when you're going to use the source. So this is when you're going to do the concat. So why? Because URL is composed of this name and this CSV row is true, and then click on OK. So we can come here and probably like maybe delete. So now let me delete this code. Say we to delete the table. Okay, let's just go here, and then so by default, what concat does is it joins these two together, right? So now when you come here, you do a debug. So the relative URL is an array. You click on OK, and then So it's running. And this field. It is succeeded. So now let's go back to this activity, this copy activity. Is sync. Auto creative, that's what I said, auto creative. So okay, did I say the table name, right? She's okay. So let's click on the parameters, table name. And here, working stats, set auto creative, right? So okay, but I don't know why this failed. Way to read the data, but it was able to read this. Okay, so there's a failure here, there's another failure. Okay, so let's go into our SQL database, right? So here we have our dbo.coaches, and then we have our dbo.athletes. Then let's select top 10. The values are here, but I don't know why it's failing here. Let's see. Column female does not exist in the decided table DBO. Yeah, let's do something. Let's go into this copy activity and to the sync. Click on open, yeah, DBO, that's what I said, and then dot data set the table name. Okay, so this is basically how you do your log. What is called your what you do here is probably like trying to do your ForEach. So like instead of like manually imputing this parameter and going into to change it, what you just do is to just specify the array, and once you specify the array, you just use this for each. So the for each is looking for a pipeline, the parameters. So these are the items you pass into it, which is like the array, and then by default, Data Factory will do this for each item inside this array, then do this activity. And then by default, just pass a table name here, which is your item, and the item is the name for each of the activities inside that array, for each of the item inside the array to pick it, and then to do what's it called, to do the popping, and then put the values here, right? So put the value here, and then you run it. So for each of the values. Okay, so this is the thing about for each. Then there are also other activities that you can also use. There's something called a lookup activity. So lookup. So what the lookup activity does is to look up data, right? So look at the settings. It depends on. So lookup is you can use lookup to check or get information or look up information from a particular, maybe from a database, from a table, or stuff like this. So now go to your settings. So what you want to do is to have this. So we want to look up tables here. So the table name, and for this table name, let's give it one of our table name, which is maybe athletes, right? So yes, athletes. So we want to look up information from this. So now come here and drop it here. So from athletes, you have your what? We already have the name here. So then you can use a query. So here is when you come to use a query. So maybe what you want to do is maybe you want to select all the column here. So this is when you can use, maybe you want to select all the columns from this table. So the lookup is just like get information. You can use it to get information like JSON, and use it to get other information. So now you can have a query here, you can have a table. So let's just say for the query, we want to get the columns that are in this table. So you can do what? Select or from this table, right? So by default, if you have a query, this will be what overwritten. Sorry, so you can do dbo.athletes. So here, select all from dbo.athletes, and then you can do your limit 1. And then here, partition type you don't want. So today is a lookup activity, and then user properties. So for this lookup activity, you can just debug this. Okay, so you're running this. Why is there a failure? Oh, okay. It's copying this again. Let me check this video stuff. I think there's an issue with my data factory. This is just failing. Why is it copy? Select one from this. Let me do something. Let me create another, what's it called? Another data factory. Okay, let me create another data factory account. So yes, create. So the name of, let me give it underneath DC. Okay, so we can go to our resource. Okay, launch a studio. So in Launch Studio, so let's go to pipeline. Let's create a new pipeline. Okay, so now let's have a lookup activity. And what we want to do is for this lookup activity to look up something. Oh, let's do something. Let's go to our storage accounts. And let's try to upload like a JSON just to look up this. So in your storage account, you cannot upload the JSON stuff. So let's have Let's just even try with this. Let's create a new source. Let's Azure database square new link service. Okay, so here let's have a query, and this query is pulling information like select or from the build.athletes, right? So dbu.athletes. If you check this, if you uncheck this, that means you want to return more than one row. You can also check or return the first row. Okay, so let's debug this and see. So this is failed. Okay. Okay, let me do something here. Let's say we do table. And for the table, let's open. Let's do this table. So let's refresh and then let's try to debug and see. It succeeded. Why is the query not succeeding? Okay, let's look at our output. And for this output, we can even have it ingested into bots. Something none. Let me remove the links and see something. Oh, succeeded. Provided a limit in us. Limit. Um, oh, sorry. I'm writing queries. Supposed to be top 10 or something. Yeah, see. I think that one was even working. Supposed to maybe like top 10 something. Yeah. I think I was using this for Postgres syntax. So let's try to debug this. This should work now. Let's see. Yeah. So this succeed, right? So let's go back. So by default, I was using limits. Limits doesn't work with SQL Server, right? So let's even do top one. So once we just get this, what's it called? The columns. So and then let's try to debug this. So let's debug this. So let's debug this. Okay, so when we debug this, so now we can even pass, and that thing about Data Factory is you can pass outputs from one to the other. So imagine you want to get like all the probably the columns or the column from a table. So you're going to use a lookup because lookup returns, you can only use it to pass information of about maybe 4 kilobytes or something. And then here you can have maybe a copy activity. So a copy activity, and what would this copy activity do? Let's assume, so you pass this. So there's something about failure, there's something about dependency. So you can pass this to run to this next activity. So this is like a let's say this is a lookup activity. Then you pass it. If this succeed, then let this work. So you want a copy activity to occur. But if it fails, you can also have it on or fail and have it on that activity, right? So if it fails, maybe you want an email to be sent to you or that stuff to be sent to you. And yeah, on completion. So if this completes, if this completes, even if there's an error, it will trigger this. And then here is on skip. So if you skip this, so that means if you don't run this, then let it run. Okay, so here in our copy activity, we can do something here, source. And then for our source, let's have a SQL database. And then I can also have a query, right? So, and for this query, we want to, so what we want to now do now is, so let's have a for each activity that would get all the column name from this and then pass it into a copy activity. So now let's have a for each. So you have a for each, and then you pass it into this. So now, what's inside this for each now? There's this setting one to have for the items. So if you look at this now, you see that you can pass the output of what's it called, your lookup into this. So inside your lookup activity output dot first row. So you can pass your first row, or you can pass the output return value. Control C. So we can even pass the first row, right? So or pass the output return value. So we click on OK, and then the output return value should return. Okay, inside this output return value, let's click on OK. So then inside this for each, we want a copy activity to work. And for this copy activity to work, we need to determine our source. So let's assume we want to copy from one table to the other. Let's assume that. And then we want to copy from this. Let's use this query. And for this source, so let's have what's it called? Let's copy from one table to the other. So now let's have open. What's a parameter? So a parameter, we can have this new for this data set parameter. Let's call this table name. And then leave the value as default. And okay, so okay, let's enter manually. So here our schema is TPO, and then our table name is what? This table name from our data set. So let's click on OK. Let's go back to our pipeline, right? So this will be what? So for each item, right? Current item. let's click on OK and let's test this. So, and then our sink. So our sink is the SQL database, but table name we want to do a concat. So we'll do a concat each item, and then let's say let's have a new for it, right? So click on OK. Let's try to debug this and see if this will work. And I want to auto create tables. Okay, so I want to auto create tables with this work. So we're getting and let me look at this page settings, getting this output. Okay, let's do OK, and let's try to debug and see if it will work. No value provided for parameters, table name. Let's debug and see. So close. So it's running, let's see. Wow, failed. So let's see why it's failed. And, lookup activity output in array. Get the output dot value. Okay, so let's see something here. So inside this page, dot value. Let's see. Okay, let's do something. Let's see dot value. Let's click on OK. So let's see what this and then let's see what lookup activity is doing. Let's debug this. Let's see what lookup activity is giving out. So source type data set, first row true. We don't want first row to be true. So let's do something. With this lookup settings, we don't want the first row to be true. And then was a query top one from DB. So we want to return. So if you run this query, this will return give this person country discipline. Okay, so let's instead of using this, maybe we can troubleshoot that one later on. Let's try to like maybe use the JSON file that we uploaded. I think where did I upload it? So let's try to like use the JSON file that we uploaded. Let me see if I can publish this. Yeah, this works. So let's go back to Microsoft Azure, and for this, let's have our storage account. Okay, account. storage. There are storage containers. For this container, for this row, inside the row, let's upload a file. Inside the row, let's upload a file. Right. So inside this file, browse for files, data.json. So upload. Okay, now let's go back here. And then is for this our lookup. We want to look up a different one. And okay, so a new one, and then we want to look up Azure Data Gen 2. And what we want to look up is JSON, right? So click on open, new, this, storage account this, click on OK. So we are creating this. And then, okay, so if you look at the JSON, we have this one, and then we have this data stuff. So we want to pass this information into, what's it called? Into our pipeline, right? So what are we going to do? We come here, file system, browse this, inside row, data.json, click on OK, none, okay. Okay, so let's try to like make this inactive. So let's deactivate this. So let's debug this and see the output. So by default, you see, let's see the output. You see this count one, this is the value, this is the data. So what we want to do is to pass this value into this activity. So now I want to pass this, what's it called, this array into, want to pass this array into this ForEach activity. So now let's activate this and then go here. And then inside this, we are going to use what activity lookup one dot output dot value. For inside value, there is something. If you look at this, let's deactivate this, or let's look at the activities. Okay, so if you look at the output here, you see that we have this value, we have this count. So if we want to reference this count, we'll just do dot count, right? Dot count, which is 1. Or we want to just do dot value. So we can do dot count, which is 1, or do dot value. So now we want to get the value of this run. So, and that's the reason why if you look at this here, if you look at this settings, we want to get the value from the run. You can also get the output, you can get the return value. Then let's do dot value. Output dot value. Let's click on OK. So for this, let's try to do, even instead of this copy activity, let's try to do something else. Let's have maybe a sets variable. Okay, let's say this variable here. So let's say pipeline variable. So the name and so the value. let's do something. Oh, let's even deactivate this. Okay, let's try to run this and see if it will give any error.
Highways are red.
The lookup succeeded. So where's the output? So item count 1. Okay, so now I see. So the output is taking it into output count 1. So let's go here. Let's debug this. Let's see something. This is for the lookup activity. This is the output. We have the count 1, and then we have the value. So we want to pass this array into this. Execute. So there's a failure. So let's see the inputs. Activity settings, general settings. So just let's see something here. The outputs of this is giving us, it's giving this the output we're interested in. So if we look at the lookup activity, we're able to get the count of this, which is count 1, and then we're able to get the value, and then these are data. So what we want to do is to pass this value as an array into the value the count is 1. Okay, let's do something here. Let's go to the settings, and then the output. So we can just, well, we can also do the count of the rows. Lookup pipeline return value, activity outputs. And then what we want to do is to get the outputs, lookup activity outputs. Lookup activity output, pipeline return value. So let's see something here. Let's see what these activities are taking, and maybe let's debug it, and let's wait for it. Okay, let's go back here. So I think we're on the right path. So this should be dot value. And let's try to debug this and see. So the lookup is working, but we just need to like be able to reference it in our ForEach activity. I think it's come this one. Why? This, I think. Okay, let's do something value.data. So yeah, value.data. Let's do and see. Let's debug it. Any that fails. It can only be selected using an integer index. Okay, so okay, nice. City down this right. This is 0, value 0, right? Dot value 0. Okay. Okay, so let's see what we're getting from the output of this lookup. So we are getting this, we are getting this count, this value, and the first one is 0, and then we can do dot data, right? And to pass this array. Okay, so I see. So we need to like reference it properly. So here you come here, value, then 0. Let's do okay. But it will be dot data, right? So dot data. So let's say okay, and let's see what will occur. So let's debug. So the thing about when you debug is you see some all these errors, and then you can be able to like the lookup is working, right? So this is the output of our lookup. So this ForEach is in progress. So you see that I think it's taking some things right now. So item count is 364. So you see that the ForEach will try to like get the count. So and then if you look at the JSON, so it's queuing. So you see that although it's failing right now, but I know why it's failing. So yeah, if you go to where did we get it? So if you look at this information here, we have about 360 something data right here. So the first thing you do is you get your data by default. This is like your data, and inside is your data. Data you have your which is kind of like your first array. So we call it like an array, right? So and then you get a 0. So you get these values. So what you can now do is to copy this into a CSV file, or use. Okay, so skilled mistaking a lot of things. So if you look at the reason why we're having issue before, the fact that we're not referencing it properly. So you have your output.value, and then 0 is telling you that you're getting the array, the first array, right? So if you look at this, so this is your value. And if you look at this here, if you look at your output of your lookup, takes a lot. Let me try to like deactivate this. Let me cancel this possibly, yeah. And then let me deactivate this. Now let's debug this lookup and see how you can properly reference these values. I think I already deactivated this. Okay, because I passed this. Okay, so I already like deactivated it. So if you come to the output, you see that you have this value. So this value is coming in as an array. So when you do dot value, this dictionary or this JSON dictionary is what is the first value in this array. So that is the reason why we have to do this array with 0, and it starts from 0. And then you have to do dot data if you want to like access the arrays inside this. So now instead of using the copy activity, let's do, instead of copying it into, so let's copy this as a JSON. Yeah, so let's have a new one. And then let's try to want to copy each item. Okay, let's do something here. So here we need to have our query, and then for this our query, right? What we have this, which is the ID. We have the infected. We have the recovered. We have the latitude. We have the population. We have the longitude. So what we can now do is to select all these values here. So now we can do, let's see, query. So let's do select or insert. So let's do something. Let's create a table, or let's create something that would, let's create a table with this information. Yeah. So let's go into this. Okay, let's do something here, and then let's have our database. Let's sign into our database. And then let's go to query this. Now where's our password? This. So what I want to do is, for each one to insert into this. And then, so it's trying to log in. So let's try to create a table. So we need to have our schema, right? So what's our schema? We have this, right? So we need to have this schema, which is a string. So we want to create a table ID string. Let's call this varchar, right? Character, and then infected. is what is a variable character, right? Variable change character. And infected is integer. So let me just do something to make it very fast. Let me just switch ChatGPT. Okay, so okay now. So now let's run this, right? So query succeeded, affected rows is 0. So now we have already succeeded in getting our details, right? So what we just want to do is to write a query, which would insert into, so let's use this, insert. So we're going to do what? Insert into, which table are we inserting into? The table we created, right? Which is dbo dot, so is in dbo, let's say tables, dbo dot, let's refresh this, dbo dot covid start. So yeah, so here we just, and then insert into what? dbo dot covid starts, dbo, and then the values are what? So the values that we're going to get now would be what? Would be the values for each of these items. So what is this item? So yeah, if you come here, by default, right, this is an array, and this is what we pass into our for each. So this item here, this item, we can reference it with the ID by this infected, recovered, latitude, and so now we are just going to do something here. Let me just move this to my other computer. Okay. So here, and then we just do insert. Our values is what? Is this current item? Dot what? Dot ID, and then current item dot infected, and then what? And then current item. So let me just do something. Let me go to ChatGPT. Let it give me. Okay, so just to be fast, I had to use ChatGPT for that. So now, does this work? Okay, so now what we want to do is to insert into that dbo that COVID start, and then these are the values, ID, like the columns, and then these are the values, right? So we are getting the ID, so we are converting into string, and this is numbers, is coming in as numbers, this is numbers. So look at it, you are referencing the item, which of the item, and then what is that item? This item is what is this, right? So it should, this is the item for this first one. This is the second item for this one, and then you are getting this dot ID dot infected just to get this information from it. Okay, so now let's do okay. And then yeah, so I think we're done with what we want to do. So our query is this, we're inserting into this, and then we are getting this of the item from this, and then let's debug it. Let's see. Oh, it's inactive, so let me make it active. Then let me activate it and let me debug it. Okay, let's see if anyone is successful. This fails. This failed. Okay, let's do something. Let me stop this and cancel possibly. Okay, and what is sync? Oh, okay, let me see. Where is this coming from? Where is the failure coming from? Okay. Okay, I think we don't even need to use what's it called? A copy activity. So there's something called it's another activity we can use to run this. So inside this, let's delete this. Let's use what's it called? Execute sys, lookup scripts, stored procedure. So let's use a stored procedure, right? So we can use stored procedure. Settings, and service this, stored procedure. We can enter this. Okay. Stored procedure name. UMP. Okay, so we can even use script activity. So let's come here. Let's have activity as well scripts. Settings here. Yeah, so we can use our query to run our script. So insert into this, so we are getting each item and then this item.id. So let's click on OK. And then yeah, so let's validate. Close, let's debug this and see. I'm guessing there's an issue with recursive. Okay, cancel this. Okay, so let's debug this and see. It's a failure. Because compatible does not exist. Okay, just hold on. Okay, price of is the same, but we have it here. Okay. Let's go back here. Let's see. Well, I don't know why it's telling me the item dot crop plus minus. Let's just put that. Let's see any of the pipeline that's associated. Okay, this one's succeeded, right? I guess the one that failed, probably the JSON. So if you see this one succeeded, this one succeeded, this one succeeded. So if you look at the script, right? So what you're basically doing, or let's look at what the script is doing. And if you look at the script, it's inserting into this. And by default, if you need to like reference the item, right? You need to like reference this item. So because you want to reference this item, you do this at and then with this curly braces and then .id. So we are getting all this information. Now let's go to our SQL database and do a refresh and our tables. So now let's see COVID stats. COVID stats. Let's select 1000 rows. And here we have our values, right? We have our ID, infected, recovered, latitude, longitude. So that's it, right? So the information are here. So it's just like you getting information. You're getting this information from this, which is this or JSON, right? It's from this JSON. Where's that JSON? Find it again. Okay, like there was a JSON we had, right? Which is for the COVID-19, and then we just, if you look at your storage, go to your storage. Let's go to storage. If you go to your storage account, you see that you have this. So when you just download your JSON and then you use your lookup. So what lookup does is it tries to like go into your container, right? And then look up a file and then erase it so you can read it as JSON. But if you are doing a copy activity, what copy activity we really do is it will just go a copy. But JSON, what lookup is like you are trying to read the content, right? So if you look at it, and then if you like open this file, right, you see, let's go into this folder, download. So if you go into folder download, and then I did a JSON, so you can open it with Notepad. So the information you have here is what you uploaded, right, to Google Cloud into Azure Data Lake storage, and then from there you're able to like reference all this information. So it's 1 minute past the time, so that's all we have for today. In the next class, we'll just like wrap up ADF, and in the next class we'll look at maybe get metadata activity and some other like if else probably, and also how to commit to Git, and then we'll wrap it up before we move on to the next service on Azure. Okay, so I think that's the end. I don't know if anyone has a question, and then yeah, that's it. Okay, if there's more question, I'll be getting the record later on. Yeah, that's it. So let me stop recording.